Last Tuesday, it was 2 p.m. It was our weekly team meeting. Got 30 minutes to get through all the status updates to keep the project on track. But in the last 20 minutes, our new hire Bob decides to question why we're not using our current system and trying to pivot to this brand new AI platform. Man, I watched that clock just tick tock all the way down, and the whole time I saw people zoning out, literally dropping out like flies. They were turning their cameras off, man, and I could visibly see people working on other things. And I was like, oh dude, I gotta stop him. Otherwise, I'm not gonna get through my status updates and we're not gonna be able to keep this going. But I didn't want to crush this new guy's enthusiasm. Like that was gonna be the trap. See, if I interrupt the wrong way, I'm gonna look like a bully. But if I don't say anything, I'm gonna lose my meeting. So I had to do something. And here's what I did. I call it the Roundabout Exit. And there's gonna be 3 moves that help someone exit that conversation loop when they're stuck. So you don't actually have to accidentally unplug your Wi-Fi just to make that pain stop, okay? I'll show you that there's an easier way to avoid all of that, and here's how. Now, before you understand the whole roundabout thing works, I need you to imagine this. Let's say you get onto a roundabout, okay? You take the innermost lane and then you put on your signal and you go on because you missed your exit, and you keep going in that circle because you're always missing your exit because you're waiting for that right moment. And that's exactly what happens when someone is hijacking your meeting like that. You see, people keep talking, right? People love to hear themselves talk. And for us on the outside, we just assume that that person is arrogant. Sure, sometimes, maybe, but most of the time, they're just stuck in what I call a validation loop. You see, it's like they're stuck in a traffic circle, but they just don't know how to take that exit. And they're gonna continue to repeat themselves or continue to blabber on while they wait for a signal that hasn't come yet. Now, for me, Bob wasn't trying to ruin my meeting, okay? He was just trying to add value. And that's the trap that most people fall into. You see, you think that being polite just means waiting for a pause, but here's the problem. You're gonna be sitting there a long time if you do that, because what's ultimately gonna happen, folks, is that if you sit there with your mouth half open trying to jump in, that pause is never gonna come. It's not gonna be handed to you on a platter. You might as well just let it fly in your mouth or something, I don't know. Now, do you guys remember Project Aristotle, the big Google project? Well, the one thing that they talked about what makes teams effective is psychological safety. And then the other thing that they found, that the biggest predictor of team success is equal participation. So when one person decides to have a 20-minute monologue of your 30-minute meeting, you can bet your ass your collective IQ of that room is gonna drop. And here's what that means for you. By being polite and waiting, you're not being kind to anyone. You're letting the entire room suffer at your inability to direct traffic. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to help them exit. And here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna use the roundabout exit. You see, the roundabout exit isn't about overpowering them. It's just sending them a signal that says, dude, I get you. Here's your exit. And that's gonna make their brain stop for a second. And then you're gonna do 3 specific movements. You're gonna start off with the signal, then you're going to do the break, and then you're gonna do the merge. See, it's like driver's ed all over again. All right, let's hop into movement 1, the signal. Now, just like when you're driving, you gotta signal before you make a move. So you gotta signal to them that something's about to change. And to do that, you're gonna use their name. You can't just be like, oh, hey, excuse me, I wanna say something. No, you gotta be like Bob. And you gotta say it without anger, okay? Don't be a D-bag about it. Just enough volume so that you can just cut through all the noise. And I'll tell you why this works. You see, you ever been at a party where you're just standing there talking with your buddies, you know, having a good time, and then all of a sudden you hear your name from like across the room and you're like, huh? Somebody call me? Well, that's called the cocktail party effect, folks. You see, our brains are hardwired to focus on our name even in a noisy room. And so when you say their name, their brain immediately snaps to attention and you just signal that the exit is coming. Now, I get it. Okay, this is gonna go against everything you've learned growing up. Your body's gonna be like, ooh, dude, I'm being rude, you know? You're gonna feel a little hot, like, oh, why is it getting hot in here all of a sudden? And you're gonna worry about humiliating them. These are all valid points, and I totally get it. And I want you to remember though, that they're still stuck in that loop and they can't get themselves out. So you are gonna have to signal the exit for them. okay? And if you don't use their name, you're just gonna be background noise. But if you do use their name, you're gonna snap them out of that trance. Okay, so once they stop, you gotta immediately move to movement number 2, which is the brakes. Now, just like when you're driving and you ease off the gas before you go into a turn, you gotta slow them down gently. And you're gonna do this by anchoring the value of what they said so they feel validated. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I validate a guy who just hijacked my meeting for the last 20 minutes? And I get it. I get it. Every part of your inside just wants to shut them down and move on with your day. But here's the thing. If you skip the break, you're gonna get resistance, okay? They're gonna feel dismissed and they're gonna push back even harder. So even if you're annoyed, you've gotta find something to anchor onto. Don't be like, yeah, Bob, we just need to move on. No, say something like, Bob, let's just pause here for a second, okay? That entire point about comparing which system is better for us is very critical. And I understand where you're suggesting it right now, period. That's it. Now, what if you genuinely can't find anything valuable about what they said? And sometimes that happens. I do want you at that point to focus on the intent, not the content. You know, think about what we learned in the previous video. Even if the input that you're getting is completely out of town, I want you to focus on the intention of them trying to problem solve with you. So something like, Bob, I can tell that you're thinking about the long term here. That's it. You've done your breaks. You're not agreeing with the idea, but you are acknowledging that they're trying to contribute. And it's just like the stop, drop, and roll all over again. Now remember, when you drop specific insights, it proves that you're listening. And well, guess what? When you do that, you're actually gonna lower Bob's defenses because you're not trying to slam on the brakes so he gets whiplash. You're easing off the gas so he can slow down safely. All right, quick pause, folks. If you're finding these communication tactics helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. I'm actually just trying to build out a whole series on these workplace communication tips, frameworks, and like different tidbits that would have helped me back in the day. Anywhere from, you know, how to disagree with people without damaging those important relationships, to speaking up when you're the quiet one, the whole 9 yards. So if you don't want to miss any of it, hit subscribe as well. But in the meantime, let's get back to our little driver's ed lesson on how to exit the roundabout. All right. So you signaled them, right? You slowed them down. Now you've got about 3 seconds of silence before they start talking again. This is where step number 3 happens, the merge. All right, so what's gonna happen is that you're gonna merge someone else into the conversation. You're gonna physically and verbally turn the conversation to somebody else. You are gonna be like, Bob, you know, let's just pause here for a second. I understand your point about evaluating which system is better for us at this point, but I do need Sarah to explain on how this might impact the timelines for the rest of our project, and especially this week, if we were to dive into this conversation. You see what you just did there? You just merged Sarah into the flow, and now you're acting like a fully certified traffic cop at a controlled roundabout. You stop one car and you wave the other one to keep the traffic going. But here's where you might feel a bit nervous about it. See, you're gonna think, well, what if just Bob rambles over me? You know, he doesn't stop. Or, and this is a little bit more interesting, what if they're higher than me? You know, they're a VP or something. Or worst case scenario, what if Sarah actually has nothing meaningful to say? Like, oh no, Sarah, please don't derail us again. Or worse, you decide maybe you want to talk. Like, Bob, I need you to pause right there. Like, I think we need to, no, just kidding, guys. Please don't do 2009 again, all right? We don't need one of those. The point is, if you merge back to yourself, it's gonna look like a power struggle. But if you merge back to the team, it's gonna look like great leadership. So to prepare for this, you gotta have the parking lot phrase ready before the meeting even starts. If the merge doesn't work and they keep pushing, then I want you to say this very assertively. Folks, I want to give that discussion the time that it needs. Let's put it in the parking lot. And if you've got 5 minutes at the end of this, we'll circle back. Otherwise, we'll follow up with an email and we'll book something in to discuss this. All right. Now what you're doing here is you're protecting the objective of the meeting while respecting the idea that Bob is bringing forward. And in team dynamics, this is called procedural justice. Okay. People will accept outcomes they don't like if they feel the process was fair. So Bob might not get his AI discussion today or about the platform, but he feels heard, not dismissed. And that's the difference between shutting someone down and helping them exit gracefully. So to wrap up the roundabout exit, you're gonna start with the signal, right? You're gonna say their name to get their attention, cut through the noise. Then you're gonna signal to them that, hey, the exit's coming. Then you're gonna slowly apply the brakes. You're gonna slow them down by validating an insight that they had or shared. And then you're gonna use that stop, drop, and roll again. And remember, if you can't find anything valuable, just anchor to their intent, not their content. And once you've done that, you've got that last bit of silence left. This is where you merge to the team, not to yourself, to keep the traffic flowing. And that'll be it. You know, last Tuesday, I did this with Bob, okay? I signaled to him with his name and I hit the brakes by validating his concern about which system we should move forward with. Then I merged over to Sarah and I called Sarah to talk about the current schedule. And thank God she had something nice to say. But you see, Bob stopped, okay? He nodded and then Sarah spoke. And we actually finished our task list review a few minutes early. And here's what surprised me. See, Bob didn't avoid me after that conversation. He actually said thanks to me because he felt heard. He didn't feel silenced. And all those cameras that were turning off, man, they turned back on like the night stars. Like, it was beautiful. Van Gogh would have been proud about the stars. The team was moving and grooving. Folks, I get it. Sometimes the problem isn't somebody talking too much. Sometimes it's actually you freezing when you try to speak up. And if you got a great idea, but you couldn't get it out, then this next video of mine is going to cover exactly what to do there. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.